And that's when people pull back budgets. That's not even necessarily based on data. You know, they're just like, oh, better scale things back. When maybe things are actually working just fine and your specific business is not in a quote unquote recession.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the eComm Growth Show.
Do I say hi now or do I wait? I'm pretty much brain fried at this point.
Let's go. What's up, guys? Daniel and Robert here of Shopinova, and we are the guys that take e-commerce stores from $100,000 a month to $1 million a month using the brand velocity framework. Meow. If you're not there yet, we have other programs for you to get you there, but that's kind of our main bread and butter. So today, Rob.
Hey. What if I'm at like 150 or 200?
If you're at 150 to 200, even 500K, we'll still get you to $1 million a month.
And it'll just be that much faster.
Let me just say at least 100K a month. How about that? So today, guys, there's a hot topic kind of swirling its way around the news. Depends on which side of the spectrum you fall on. Some people think there is a recession. Some people think there's not a recession, actually. It's kind of this funny, controversial thing where if you ask Joseph Biden, he'll say we're not in one.
Really?
Yeah, but then the other side, of course, we're in one. So, you know, it's a classic political thing. How do you know if you're in a recession, Rob?
I don't know if I know the answer to that, but what I do know is that regardless of if we're in a recession or not, there's very specific principles that you should be falling back on.
Yeah.
But is that something you really wanted to get answered here? Because I'm not quite sure how we know or how we don't know.
I'm not talking about a political climate. What I'm talking about is probably looking at your own business, and that's going to determine, because our clients, it doesn't look like there is a recession. But in the news, like consumer behavior, buyers, like a lot of things changing in the marketplace.
Yeah, totally.
So that's what I was getting at. It's like e-commerce store owners, how do they know if they're in a recession or not? And
it's like, well, let us put it this way. So we have a client who's up, 322% from last July. And it's like, well, if this is a recession, let's give me another one.
Sign me up.
No, but in all seriousness, there are some pretty scary things happening. You got brands like Lady Boss. They do tens of millions of dollars a year, and it's like, hey, our cost of goods have increased over 80%. Cost to acquire a customer is like through the roof. Ad costs are through the roof, and it's actually led for us to an unsustainable business model, and they're closing their doors. And so I think it's those things where it's like, yeah, maybe there is a little bit of truth to what's going on. Again, not trying to float into a political conversation, but it's like, dang, that's crazy, and that's just one of many. There's a lot of people that are really, really struggling. So you kind of got to ask yourself, well, why are some people scaling really hard and some are not?
Yeah.
And so what we can do in these times, Dan, in my opinion, is look at previous recessions. I think since 1948 or something, there's been how many? Like 11 recessions lasting about 10 or 11 months. And it's like, okay, that's not that bad, actually.
Yeah, considering this one probably started in like February, if you look at the stock market, whatever. And so we're about 7-8 months in.
Totally. And especially, too, when you look at guys like Warren Buffett, who's saying, hey, you need to be greedy when others are fearful.
Yeah.
And fearful when others are greedy. And it's oftentimes when the economy's shaken up and everybody's kind of spiraling out in fear that a lot of wealth is transferred and a lot of big businesses are built. And so it really does. I mean, to some extent, like there's definitely some real things, like it's expensive to acquire a customer.
Yep.
Does that mean your strategy is ruined? No, you just need to change it and adapt it. But you do need to have the perspective that like, hey, this is an opportunity for me to grow and build.
Yeah, and I was reading an article on entrepreneur.com and they said something really great of now's the time to double down on building your brand.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so good because that's what people are going to remember when their recession's done or through recessions is a brand that they know, like, and trust. So how can you double down on brand building? And this is something we're always harping on. But today, Rob, I wanted to dive into just 3 tactical ways, 3 things that e-commerce store owners can do in times like this. So let me just hit them really quick. Number one, don't stop marketing. Number two, look at your cash flow. And number three, invest in your existing customers. Now, let's kind of knock those down one by one.
Yeah, definitely. So how to thrive in the face of a recession. Number one, don't stop marketing. Every investor would tell you in times of dips and you know, in times of recession, everything's on sale. So the same is true for you as somebody who actually purchases attention. And so you really need to have that perspective, like you're an investor, your advertising is your investment, and the people you acquire is how you're going to actually experience the fruits from that. So you don't want to just turn that off because it's on sale.
Yep, exactly. And I think a lot of businesses, the first budget to go is their marketing budget. Guess what else goes once you dump marketing? Sales.
Yeah, totally.
So it's not the wisest route to take, in my opinion.
Yep, totally. Everything downstream of marketing it's the lifeblood of your business. You can't just like cut that off and expect to last more than a month or two.
Yeah, totally. And I think there's lots of nuances when looking at this. Now's probably not the best time to launch brand new campaigns that you have no idea if they're going to work or not.
Yeah.
But rather go to market with validated, proven marketing methods that have worked historically for you and kind of double down on that and tighten up on testing a little bit right now. Don't just be testing in the midst of consumer behavior being kind of odd right now.
Yeah, it's really weird. People are scared. Should I spend? Should I not spend? And I think one thing too, I don't know if it's somewhere on one of these bullet points, is it's like, yes, people are cutting back expenses to a certain extent, but not as much as you'd think.
Right.
You know, above and beyond their necessities.
You mean the consumers, like people buying products?
Yeah, it's like back to school time.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's out shopping. And
tell you what, bro, my credit card's been out the last few months.
Totally. So I think it's really good for people to really just face the fear a little bit.
Yeah.
I think you can't have this conversation without a conversation of fear. And there's only one way to face it, and it's just to move through it.
Yeah, and there's so much, you're right, fear mongering going on, and that's when people pull back budgets. That's not even necessarily based on data. You know, they're just like, oh, better scale things back.
Yeah.
When maybe things are actually working just fine, and your specific business is not in a quote unquote recession. Totally. But my point was, don't cut out marketing. Put your money where it's working and keep growing and scaling that. Don't be testing a bunch in these weird, uncertain times.
Yeah, just back to the basics. Really get dialed in on your core message. Put sufficient budget there to carry you through. And then too, you know, we're not absolutely ignorant to the fact that there are some costs rising.
Yeah.
And there are some difficult things financially, different hurdles to get over. And so the second point to being able to, you know, thrive in the face of recession is just really locking in your cash flow.
Yep.
And so what that means is you really need to take some time to look at any unnecessary expenses, you know, different creative automated tools, softwares, just stuff that you're not using.
Why'd you laugh?
I just like that. I just totally got distracted and totally lost my train of thought. But we just did this recently, right? We took every single credit card expense, which was, you know, a list that's a lot longer than
we'd like to admit.
You'd like to admit, but they just pile up over time. So it's a good practice to do, regardless of if you're in a recession or not. But just kind of tally up all your expenses and just see, is there anything in there that you're not currently getting value from, and can you tighten up?
Yeah, can you operationally get lean? Can you drop back on some of your capital expenses? It's always good to revisit this, even if you're not in the middle of recession, but just kind of all businesses go through expansion and contraction. The contraction is really good because it's like puts the business through a fire and you know, burn off wasted things. And so just look at all that stuff because you're going to get more efficient and more profitable as you go through that process. And to some of you, that might seem really obvious. To some of you, you haven't looked at that since you started the business, and you have thousands and thousands of dollars of monthly expenses that aren't even helping you grow.
Dude, and the optimistic side of it is this is a very necessary process to go through to lay a good foundation for scaling.
100%.
Because you don't pay attention to those if you have everything like easy. You know, you're never going to go back and cut all the expenses and make the hard decisions if you can just like easily afford them above and beyond affording them. So it's a really good time to kind of go through, like you said, it's a very refining process, and that most likely lays a really, really good foundation for scaling harder when things start to turn up and to do it even more profitably.
Here's a little hackaroo too, is people should be using American Express, in my opinion, credit cards for ad spend, because you get such good benefits. I mean, how many times have you and I cashed in some stuff for our wives, and they're just but the rewards programs from those cards are super good. So be looking at opening lines of credit like that, or other lines of credit that you just have access to in case you do need to dip into those, you know, if things slim down in your business. But be looking to expand lines of credit was the point I wanted to make there.
Yep. And then in addition to really just optimizing how you're even paying for ad spend, just look at areas where you might be cannibalizing yourself. It really is about, you know, both in terms of the marketing message, but also in terms of rolling out the budget. You just want to get to the core fundamentals right now and be able to have just a little bit of growth. It's not time to go crazy. It's not time to test a ton of new messaging. It's also not time to test a ton of new audience segments. So really get dialed into that core. Make sure there's no overlap if you're in kind of this multi-channel approach. And you know, it's really good to make sure you have a little bit of cash on hand so that you don't have to disrupt your campaigns if you're trying to figure out cash flow for, you know, 2 or 3 weeks here as orders are rolling in.
Yeah, for sure. Super good, dude. And I think that covers number 2. So let's move on to number 3. That is investing in your existing customers. I think this one a lot of people overlook and don't think about, but it's so important, especially as you grow your brand and, you know, create raving customers. This one is something that right now is so important to focus on.
Yeah, and here's the thing. So all of these are really, really important regardless of what's happening with the current economy, because what we see so often with when it comes to investing in existing customers is that people, you know, after you acquire the customer, the heavy lifting's already done.
Yeah.
So it's actually pretty easy to launch a couple email campaigns and make a few bucks, and people think at that point they're at peak performance. And it's like, dude, if 30% of your revenue, maybe even 40, isn't coming from existing customers, you're missing out on so much money. And so a lot of people think that just because it, you know, it quote unquote works, that they're taking full advantage of that mechanism, where it's like, dude, you really, really need to get this dialed in. And if a recession is going to help you get there, then like start the recession yourself, because it's what you need to get to the next level.
Dude, don't joke about a recession so much. I'm just kidding. No, you're totally right. And you know, Rob, there's ways to do it too, where you're not just squeezing all the equity out of your customers, right?
Yeah,
there's ways to build community, build value, that I see brands do so well as make the sale. You know, you feel like you're kind of a part of something when you're buying into that brand.
Yep.
So that's something you can also be focusing on, you know, with reaching back out to existing customers. Like, how can I build a community? How can I actually provide value to my existing customers? Then there's things like, you know, what's my post-purchase customer acquisition experience look like? I said that wrong, but my post-purchase experience, like how is that building relationship, building community? So just go through all those things with your existing customers and just see if there's any missing pieces there.
Totally. And I know we're laughing, so it's kind of this weird thing where it's like we're holding a few truths in tension, because yes, we see people struggling. Yes, we see a lot of big brands that we all know, like, and love, you know, saying this is very real for them. They're laying off employees. You know, Shopify just laid off a ton of employees. And that feels scary. But on the same side, the very same token, it's like there are people scaling. And has our strategy changed that much? No, it's just given us a little bit more focus on, you know, locking in the cash flow. But that's something you should be doing anyways.
Yeah.
You know, investing in existing customers, you should be doing that already.
Yeah, spending money on marketing. You should already be doing that.
Yep. The only thing is, it's like, you know, maybe doing a little bit of strategy around, like, are we going to test this now, or are we going to test it, you know, a little bit closer to Q4 or, you know, the Q1 of next year.
Yeah.
So I'm still super optimistic, and I get my optimism from the ad accounts that we run and the Shopify revenue that we see rolling in. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think just it was really good, those 3 takeaways today, and even just reading around the internet and like what it takes to be building a brand. Like, obviously these 3 things are really important, especially, you know, spending money on marketing so you stay in front of people, and then investing in your customers. That's just like good business principles across the board, but especially important right now in the midst of a quote unquote recession.
Yeah. And I think Mark Twain said something along the lines of, you know, I've been through a lot in my day, some of which actually happened. And it's like, dude, you beat yourself up and you stay awake all night, and you like internalize all that fear, and you look back after going through some of those seasons, and you're like, it didn't really change that much. Like, the facts, the evidence didn't change that much. Yes, there's some, but I got to believe that there's ways around it.
Yeah, and if it's changing for you. You're going to come out through this fire stronger, and you're going to negotiate better deals with your manufacturers. You're going to find new marketing methods that work well. You're going to make your customers happier. So it's just going to make your business stronger if you adapt and approach it with the right mindset moving forward. So that's what I have to say about that, Bobby.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dan. Love this topic. Guys, until next time, we'll catch you later.